HBO's super hyped The Last of Us, based on the best-selling game, is coming out early next year. After almost 3 years of waiting, the show is turning out to be worth it. In a recent interview, its prosthetic designer talked about how the clickers in the show were made. In this video, we're going to take a deeper look into the clickers and how a later release date gives it an edge. Starting with more on the show. The prosthetic designer of The Last of Us TV adaptation talked about bringing some of the most iconic monsters from the game to life. The upcoming show is trying not just to recreate, but bring to life Sony and Naughty Dog's award-winning video game from 2013. Adding to that, it aims to cover both games and much more throughout its 8-season-long run. Now, it takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where a fungal infection has destroyed society. The center of the game is around Joel and Ellie as they take on a dangerous cross-country trip that starts as just a job but turns into a father-daughter dynamic. And here, Pedro Pascal plays Joel, whereas Bella Ramsey plays Ellie. Its first trailer came out and calmed our biggest fear of it. From what we could see, it's staying impressively faithful to the source material, including characters, locations, and most importantly, creatures that strike an insane resemblance to what we've seen for years. One of the creatures the trailer showed off, in particular, was the clickers, one of, if not the most frightening monsters from the game. These creatures are humans who have been taken over by a cordyceps brain infection over a long time, which ends up with them losing higher brain functions, sight, and humanity. Not only that, but they experience severe fungal growth all over their head and face and even develop echolocation so that they can move around, causing their dreaded clicking sound. A brief glimpse at them shows a very practical-looking, extremely tangible version of them, making them all the more terrifying. Coming up, Barry Grower's experience working on it. Barry Grower is the prosthetic designer for the show and has even worked on Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Chernobyl, House of the Dragon, The Witcher, and many more. The designer recently interviewed Variety and talked about creating clickers in the upcoming live-action series. He talked about his enthusiasm for working on the show and finally getting a chance to bring one of his favorite creatures to life. The designer also confirmed that the show intends to stay loyal to its source material. Working on The Last of Us was a dream come true for him. He said that for any monster maker, it's exactly the kind of work in the industry they're looking for. The scripts were incredible with some insanely terrifying parts. A lot is waiting for the fans, and the designer considers himself lucky to be a part of it. In fact, he said that fans would be happy with what they've made. Even from what I've seen of it during shoots, it's as authentic to the game as possible, and he hopes that fans feel the same way about it. If they do manage to hit the mark with it, it will hopefully spawn a bunch of new fans who get to experience Joel and Ellie's story from a completely different perspective. It's truly an exciting time to be a fan of the franchise. The designer's excitement shows that everyone involved in the team is extremely passionate about the project and wants it to be a good show and a worthy successor to the game's legacy. Lastly, everything we know about HBO, The Last of Us. Grower's enthusiasm for making these monsters and generally being a part of the series shows how much it means to everyone involved, especially since it's turned into the single most expensive TV series ever shot in Canada. It's clear that HBO is giving the show their all as well, along with the team. So far, the footage and behind-the-scenes pictures tease multiple significant events that have been pulled out straight from the games, even the hospital scene where Joel's running with his daughter. Furthermore, Joel and Ellie's original voice actors, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, are reportedly present on set and are expected to come on as well, though more details about their roles aren't out yet. The show's commitment to ensuring that it sticks to the games is likely due to Neil Druckmann, who wrote and directed the original game. Druckmann is acting as co-creator along Craig Mazin from Chernobyl. While most video game adaptations end up being major disappointments, it seems as if HBO is trying its best to make a show that not only lives up to the source material, but would eventually be better. The Last of Us seems to be getting the adaptation it deserves in the upcoming show, which is a delight to its passionate fan base. Though we've seen similar dedication in previous live adaptations, are they just meant to be bad? Or is The Last of Us finally going to break that pattern? Moving on, here's why HBO's The Last of Us is taking so long and why it's a good thing. Coming up, a 2023 release. HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us is to come out in 2023 with their reported release date, but it might be worth the wait, even though it's coming out much later than expected. While it was originally reported to come out this year, a later release date might be for the better. Talks about the franchise's live adaptation have been going on since the first game's release in 2013. HBO finally gave the green light to start working on it 5 months after the success of its second game in 2020. It would have been in production for 3 years by the time it's out. Adding to that, its recent trailer has left fans insanely excited and begging for it to come out as soon as possible. But let's letting it cook to perfection may be the best approach here, especially when talking about a franchise loved by almost everyone. The series takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, following the story of Joel, a smuggler, and his teenage sidekick, Ellie. The two must find a way to survive in the fungi-infected world that can turn its victims into horrifying creatures. The game was insanely a bestseller and won multiple awards, along with endless compliments on its characters, world building, and narrative. Naturally, its live adaptation comes with a lot of hype. That is probably one of the biggest reasons for such a late release date. Moving on to getting it right. The Hollywood Reporter reported its original release date, but HBO, later on, corrected them, saying that we should expect a release early in 2023. Its long production time was important for them to get the world right. Although it does change the story just a bit to adjust better on screen, it seems like the team is trying their best to recreate it as closely as they can. Most of the filming took place in Calgary, with huge sets that make it look like a post-apocalyptic Boston. It's a given that it uses a lot of special effects. These effects are also the reason its budget went up to $10 million per episode. Furthermore, it's been confirmed that the first season will cover the first game's entirety, taking place over a year. What did this mean for the filming process? First, they had to shoot during the right seasons, despite its wider plot timeframe facing a change. Unlike the game, the show was no longer based in 2013, but in 2003. Finally, here's why The Last of Us TV series wait is important. The team clearly shows us that rushing it just to put it out there isn't an option, since they care about the project. It's clearly in the hands of people who love and adore its story and world, with one of the writers, Neil Druckmann, having written and directed the game along with their other writer, Craig Mazin, being a huge fan of it. Because of its long wait, it's much more likely to live up to its hype, which is important since the second game left fans with mixed feelings. It's a much better option than a disappointing, rushed adaptation, especially since it's confirmed to go on for 8 seasons, making it even more important to get the first season as close to perfection as possible. HBO has a pretty good idea of how they want to move along with it. Along with putting in some of the most important scenes from the game, the show comes with content that's cut out from it in an attempt to make it more drama-oriented than pure action. The remastered version of the game has enabled new fans to be just as excited about the show. At the same time, it may seem like a very long wait, but if the show manages to be up to the mark, it's well worth it. And with recent images and footages that have come out, it's never been easier to say that it's something worth looking forward to. That's a wrap for this video. Are you excited about The Last of Us? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.